The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida. 22 million Sri Lankans woke up this morning to the awe-inspiring news that a son of the soil, Shehan Karunatilaka, had won the prestigious Booker Prize for the year 2022 for his novel, The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida. And this evening, today, I have the very, very great honor of interviewing the great mind himself, the man behind the masterpiece, Seven Moons of Mali Almeida. We are joined by none other than Shehan Karunatilaka. He is the recipient of the 2022 Booker Prize for his novel. Thank you very much, Shehan, for joining us. I know you're living quite a busy lifestyle after your very, very prestigious win, but nevertheless, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a very brief chat with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for calling. Thanks for interviewing. Yeah, it's been busy. I've got a couple of hours sleep and it's just been interviews and photo shoots, but this is fine.
So Shehan, let's get straight into it. This morning, I will tell you my personal experience. I woke up to the news alert of Seven Moons of Mali Almeida winning the prestigious Booker Prize for 2022. And then afterwards, when I was browsing the internet, I eagerly browsed the internet to see what this was all about. And I saw your speech, which was even more inspiring. And before we get into that, I want to ask you, Shehan, this is the first Booker Prize Sri Lanka has won since 1992 after Michael Ondaatje. And your novel is set in the year 1990 when Sri Lanka was beset by a civil war. And I personally believe, Shehan, that each publication, be it a book, be it a poem, be it a song, it reflects the thought process of that particular author. What was going through your mind when you penned this masterpiece, Shehan?
Well, it is a long process. I've been writing this for about 7 years and it took many forms. My thought process was simply this. It was during 2010, 2011, 2012, after the post-war period. And I remember we were all grateful and relieved that the war had ended, but there was a lot of controversy over how it had ended. How many civilians were killed and whose fault that was. And I just remember it was just a battle of the documentaries. One side was saying, the government shelled civilians. The government spokespeople said, no, it was the tigers using them as shields. And the fact is these people died. But we are arguing about whose fault it was. And the idea that came to me was, what if we had a ghost story where the dead could speak and at least give their side of the story? So that was how I started with it. But firstly, I'm not a journalist. I'm not good on hot takes. That's why I don't go on Twitter very often. So I thought, I can't make sense of what's happening now, but I can take this idea and look at our past. I mean, sadly, there are so many periods in our past where you can look at where people have died and there's been no explanation or no one prosecuted for it. So that's why it took me to 1989. I felt one thing, it was far enough in our past that I could write about it freely, but also most of the antagonists were no longer with us, were dead. And so I felt it wouldn't be controversial. So that was the reason I went to it. But the main thing was to write a ghost story and give voice to the dead who have been silenced.
Right. Shehan, revisiting your very infamous speech that has been shared widely on social media.
Infamous? Sorry, it was just 12 hours ago. I don't know. My phone has like 400 unread messages. I don't know what's happening. But
it's spread like wildfire, Shehan, especially in Sri Lanka. It's spread like wildfire. And people are embracing that. Every single word you said rings true with many people across the island, Sri Lankans who are living abroad, and even people from foreign nations. In your speech, what caught me the most, Shehan, was when you said, I hope that this is read in a country, in a Sri Lanka, where corruption, cronyism, and race baiting is shunned, where those ideas do not work anymore. What is that Sri Lanka you envisaged?
So look, I think if you look beyond all the things in the book, it's really a very simple question. Do we dig up our past and face it and learn from it? Or do we bury it and forget about it? And it seems, I mean, look, I've lived through the 80s and the 90s and the last 4 decades, the entire war. And what kind of disappoints me about the country is I don't think we learn. I don't think we've had a 30-year war. You would think that would end the idea of a Sri Lanka based on many races. You think that that would foster unified Sri Lanka. But still, years after the war, we're still involved in the same mistakes of baiting minorities and peddling this idea that Sri Lanka belongs to some people, it doesn't belong to other people. And so this was a disappointment for me. And I'm quite, when I wrote this book, I mean, I was just trying to write a murder mystery, but it just occurred to me that 1989, 1990, it's almost like the ancient past. It's not that long ago. It's my lifetime, but we don't seem to have learned any lessons. And so for me, I think the value of literature and art, it can't, like I said in my speech, I can't solve these problems. I can just sit in the dark. I also get power cuts, sit in the dark power cut and write my novels and stories. But this idea that I believe, we've tried forgetting the past. Oh, we're resilient, it's bygones. Now even the recent past, the Araga layer, where there's different narratives now around it. I thought it was a beautiful moment where the country unified. But now again, that is being tainted by different narratives around it. And I just feel that, forgetting about the past doesn't make it go away. I think I really want a Sri Lanka where we address the painful issues of our past and the crimes of our past.
Yes.
1983, we talk about it every July. There's something on the internet. But has there been a memorial for 1983? Has there been an apology, acknowledgement by any state actor? No, it's just like, oh, it was in the past. Let's forget about it. But there are obviously people who cannot forget about it. And so I think, for me, the Sri Lanka that soberly deals with its past and takes the lessons from its past. And what I said, my speech was cut short. I'm glad I was able to speak in Sinhala and Tamil and squeeze that in, even though they were trying to shut us down. But, I just wanted to say that I would like a Sri Lanka that doesn't make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And these ideas that I brought up, some of them, race baiting, corruption, cronyism, they haven't worked for Sri Lanka. Let's face it, they have not worked. So why are we repeating them? Why not try and embrace some new ideas? And so, yeah, my hope is, look, we have men in there, and they're predominantly men, let's face it, in their 70s and 80s running the country, the men who have got us into this mess. And even my generation, people in their 40s and 50s, I believe we have failed as well. We've dropped the ball. So I would like to see people below 40, people in their 30s, in their 20s, young people who don't have these dated ideas, who can embrace the idea that this is one Sri Lanka, and if we want to move forward, we move forward as a nation. You can keep your identities, but why do we need these divisions? Why do we need? And so, look, this is nothing new. I think every Sri Lankan knows it deep down.
Yes.
But yet somehow we keep making these same mistakes. So that is my hope, that it is read. And yeah, that's why I meant it should be filed under fantasy, because this is a fantastic novel with talking ghosts and demons. It should be under fantasy. But why is it seen as a political, realistic novel? So, yeah. Sorry, long-winded answer, but that's my...
What sort of advice do you have for budding authors? There are many young and up-and-coming authors. There are many writers, poets, you name them, in Sri Lanka who looked up to you today, who look up to you, and who will probably keep on looking up to you for this marvelous... the pride you have brought to Sri Lanka. In essence, a country that is the pride of victories. You have brought us a lot of pride. What is your message? What is your advice to those who are willing to pursue the art of book writing, who want to be authors, who want to be poets, who want to go all out in their creative aspects? What is your word of advice?
Well, firstly, I think Sri Lanka, we are blessed or cursed with so many stories. Like, if you just look at the last 10, you should just look at this year, how many stories we can tell. The last decade, since independence. If you don't even want to talk about, you can talk about the colonial time. We've had 3 colonizers. All we know is those myths that were passed down to us, but I'm sure a storyteller who uses their imagination can unearth real nuggets there, or bypass that, go through our so-called 2,500-year history. So we have an abundance of stories. And for budding writers, there's no shortcut. I would just say you need to, and by writers, I mean, it doesn't have to be novels. You have cinema, and now you have, you have TikToks. These are narrative methods, tweets. however, whatever your medium is, I think the first thing is you got to be serious. You got to be a professional, which means you got to write every day and read every day. And that's something I've done for the last 15 years, since even when things look, I've produced 2 books in 15 years, but I still write every day. If I don't write every day, I feel like the day is wasted. And if you're not willing to read, you're not willing to write, I don't know how you're going to produce world-class work. And by world-class work, I mean, it doesn't have to win a Booker Prize, but just something that a stranger on the other side of the world can pick up and have an engaging experience with. So I would say, firstly, there are plenty of stories. Find one that or many that you are passionate about. But to tell it, it's not easy. You have to take it seriously. And this book, I wrote about 7 or 8 drafts. And the first few were crap. I'd say the first 6 were crap. But you don't give up. You know that each time you improve it, it's going to get better. And so I think, it's not something to dabble in. We don't want amateurs, but I want more and more Sri Lankans to write and tell our stories, and especially, look, it shouldn't just be middle class Sri Lankans in Colombo writing stories. We have the Sinhala literature, we have Tamil literature, and I'd like to see more of that in translation, that we're reading each other's stories. But that's my hope.